You're my teacher.
Yeah, so what?
I can't do it. I'm sorry, but I give up.
Alright, everyone inside and staying safe? I know I've been, and with nothing better to do than rewatch my favorite anime of all time, Yu Yu Hakusho, a show that recently came back into discussion because a few anime YouTube channels have brought it back up, and because it was a series creator Togashi's birthday not too long ago. Therefore, I'm not the only one still thinking about this show, so I figured it would be perfect time to do a longer, more analysis-focused video on it.
Piece of cake.
I don't think you would be here if you hadn't seen my other character thesis videos, but for those of you that haven't, a character thesis is a guiding principle that encapsulates who a character is or aspires to be. And this time we're looking at the lead protagonist of Yu Yu Hakusho, Yusuke Urameshi, the Spirit Detective, and his very simple but effective hope to start caring about something. But before we get into it, I feel a couple of caveats are necessary. One, this could almost feel like a related video to the one I did on vulnerability in Yu Yu Hakusho, and while I would appreciate you watching it, you don't need to. And two, upon this rewatch, I picked up a lot more offensive material in the show than I previously noticed, especially when listening to the uncensored dub. This show is still a product of its time, as well as I know there are logistics of dubbing and who writes them that might not match the original sub or manga's intention. Nonetheless, I don't want to hold this series or anything on that kind of pedestal. And, you know, just so you know, we're going to be spoiling the whole series.
Yes, dear?
Have you ever not known about something that seemed obvious to everybody else?
That happens to us all, I think.
Yu Yu Hakusho stands up to many as one of the shonens people grew up watching. It, for many people, was probably the first tournament arc they ever saw, or the first long-form battle shonen with next to no filler in between seasons. So naturally, it also has a bit of nostalgia power working, although I think that would be dismissive of this show's clever battle strategies, the vibrant character design, and the stellar dub performance that not only sells the comedy, but also the heart of this show. Because it's in that heart that we find an interesting thread throughout the series that also doubles as one of the biggest complaints I've heard against it. The complaint being the series' power system spirit energy, and more specifically, life energy. Whenever a character, be it Yusuke, Kuwabara, or whoever, is in an almost impossible fight or bind, they resort to using something called life energy. Tapped out of all their power, they volunteer their life in exchange for a victory in battle. It's always well built up to and given good weight, but it's never followed through with. Anytime a member of Team Urameshi decides to make the ultimate sacrifice, normally a contrived plot reason kicks up that saves them in the end. Every member of the team does it. Yusuke does this several times throughout the series and only dies twice in, non-related reasons. It's not an inherently bad idea for a show about your ideology being contested through punching matches, but it does weaken your audience's sense of stakes in the fights if these characters can just keep pulling this magic card out and receiving no consequences for these actions.
I guess you can thank me later for my astounding cleverness.
So for a long time, I kind of just accepted that this was a flaw with the show. It still had pretty cool fights, just, some of them were better than others. But, we wouldn't be here if there wasn't a but. While I think this concept of life energy is a contrived plot device in a show about fighting, it's also deeply connected to the motif and growth of all of the main characters of the show. And even more important, it's perfectly intertwined with our lead hero, Yusuke's thesis.
That's it.
Let's go to the episode in question. The particular moment is episode 20 at the very end of the Saint Beast arc when Yusuke is fighting Suzaku. He's being tortured by all of the clones in a neat little art direction contrasting the color orange with Suzaku's power and Yusuke's blue spirit energy. Thus, when Yusuke is engulfed with the orange light, it not only communicates the terrible and severe situation he's in, but also the sheer amount of pain he's currently bearing. Genkai's teachings kick back into his head, and what follows isn't entirely a cinematic masterpiece, but it's effective at conveying the narrative. Genkai's teachings and lessons taking full frame shows the importance and how deeply they resonate within Yusuke. Him starting the scene in a rather confident pose, which only begins to slack when he's being taunted by Genkai, shows that the problem Yusuke is facing is not a physical challenge, but a mental one.
You're working me to death here!
Approaching death is the key to your training. We're born with a talent for fighting. Who cares? You never worked for it. It was easy. You always quit any time the answer wasn't served on a silver plate.
And when his mental fortitude is being pushed too far, he relies on his physical strength to literally give him the high ground in the argument. However, Genkai being his superior quickly brings him back down to earth, which is what I'm getting at. It's a nice blending of the show demonstrating that at its heart, this show isn't just about who's physically stronger, but what motivates the punches of these battles. And it just so happens Genkai says Yusuke's thesis for him.
It's time you bit the bullet and started caring about something with all your heart and energy. But you can't care about it if you're always holding yourself back in case it doesn't work out.
The camera looks back up at Genkai to affirm the importance of her words, and the swirling downward shot back to Yusuke does demonstrate him trying to focus, but the process is disorienting. And intentional or not, him asking the question then fading back to him fighting shows that he didn't figure out his answer that day of training. He's only having this realization now, months later, when he needs it the most. Remember what you said?
Approaching death is the key to your training.
What?
Of course, this will differ on sub or dub, but Justin Cook's performance matches the perfect blend of frustration with self and situation that this plot beat exists in. Yusuke is mad that he's being forced to confront these feelings and emotions about himself, but he's even more angry at himself for not having an answer. Through the resurgence of his spirit energy, shows that he's on the verge of his breakthrough.
Come all this way, but what's the big deal? I mean, what's it gotten me? Why do I care?
Falls is a pretty basic montage of clips we've seen, which it's superficial, but I think it works at reminding the audience and Yusuke himself that everyone he knows has committed to this mission, and the least he could do is apply himself entirely in return. It's a friendship power-up, we've all seen it. Hell, it's even complete with him opening his eyes in acknowledgement, him saying that they care, and him exploding with that beautiful blue energy. And believe me, I know this sounds a little basic, but hear me out. It's this exact power-up that leads to the conclusion of the case, which is Yusuke using his life energy to save the day. And you see, what's interesting here is that the show doesn't end with Yusuke passing out. It continues to show the characters talking and discussing the nature of his actions. And not in total admiration, but in confusion.
He's actually willing to sacrifice his life for her? What will he profit from that?
Here's what I don't understand. Why would he bother saving her if he died in the process?
So, for one, never forget, Yusuke is a punk kid. The anime even censored out some of his more delinquent behavior from the manga. Nonetheless, the show goes out of its way to show just how mean he has the potential of being. He's not a wholesome kid, he's selfish, so on a very basic character level, him growing and committing to the idea of caring about something is in its best way an example of growth.
It figures that on the one day I feel like going to school, everyone wants to push on me and give me their stupid lectures. I hate that school. I hate this town. Maybe there have been times when I've been pissed and hated things, but it wasn't from this work. And if all the crap in my life hasn't screwed me up yet, then neither will this.
But even more important, and this is where Yu Yu Hakusho starts to differentiate itself from the wholesome story, is that the show spends a large amount of time explaining that people are the product of circumstances outside their control. Yusuke is largely the way he is because the world he lives in treats him unfairly.
I see. Yusuke was beating you two up for your wallets. Typical scum behavior.
I knew you couldn't hide your true character. You've transformed into a demon menace.
Look,
So the concept of caring doesn't come naturally, it's a struggle. There's a reason he comes to befriend demons, creatures that are largely misunderstood and ridiculed.
This is sure one heck of a greeting for special guests. Hey,
Agreed, Kuwabara. It most certainly isn't pleasant being called a traitor by creatures you've never met.
And you see, this is where I think life energy kicks back in because it's an interesting concept that goes hand in hand with his thesis. It's a very active character choice. Because all the characters know what it is, they can choose whether or not to use it. It's not the same thing as being defeated or sacrificing themselves, because those both imply a loss on the behalf of the user. No, life energy is a tool and one that can be unlocked by learning to care.
Concentrate on what's important, Yusuke. Then commit to it all the way.
It's shown to be a very powerful tool as well, but once again, it can't be used by our cast for a good length of time because they all struggle with caring. It's not just enough that Yusuke himself performs this in episode 20, but also that he directly influences the lesson of caring in others. So when each of the team gets to the point in the story where they unlock their ability to use their life energy, it may not be the best battle moment, but I think it's more meant to be indicative of how close they've all gotten to one another.
The boy is using the same strategy Yusuke did in a previous case.
if this fight ends in a draw, my team wins and the rest of my guys get to live.
I can summon once more in exchange for my life. This may be the first time he has ever been willing to die for anyone but himself.
Yusuke's actions affect his whole team. His selfless act with Kurama saves him in his fight with Hiei. His selfless belief in Hiei saves the whole team. His unabashed love for Kuwabara is what motivates him to get stronger, which even culminates in him throwing his thesis back at the very person who taught him it.
You're nothing but a stupid little hypocrite! You told me to commit to something all the way and I chose my friends!
That episode is number 63, which demonstrates long-form narrative's secret tool. The growth of their characters, and in this case being the protagonist, is a long process. Yusuke struggles and grapples with this concept, even turning down strength in favor of his friends. He does not dismantle the world that created his original mindset, but slowly and gradually overcomes it with similar characters that all feed into each other's growth. And it's even doubled down by all the show's antagonists. All the villains of the show are various forms of apathetic. They all, in specific ways, do not care about anything, whether it be through power, be through wisdom, or be through money. This is why all the villains are dark reflections of our heroes, because they all live in the same world. They're just the right amount of relatable, so very easily they could become just like them.
I understood my power and was freed from human baggage. No one ever helped you. They all took part in humanity's darkest indulgence.
And so each one challenges Yusuke and his friends' drive and desire to care about all the people in their lives, to the point that at the end of the series, they're literally looking after select people and in some cases, factions. So while this might not be the most layered thesis and meaning out there, it is an effective implementation of one core concept. It may only be doing one thing, but it's doing that one thing very well, and it shows through its tone and setting that caring is not something that's always easy to do. But learning to care is exactly the thing that enables you to grow and get stronger. And when thrust in the face of apathy or people trying to tear you away from what you care about, it's the connections that empowered you to begin with that'll enable you to overcome adversity.
It's one thing to be empowered by rage at the loss of your friend. It's something extraordinary to be empowered by his return.
I don't think you'll be able to start shooting beams out of your fingers or sprouting swords made of pure energy, but it's a pretty wholesome message to take away from our silly battle show. So, call it simple, call it basic, but hey, I can think of so many shows that just barely itch this idea, but I can think of only a few that truly earn these moments.
Feelings are your power. Touché, human. At last I understand.
But for now, that's all I got. Thank you for watching this video and sharing it with your friends, and I'll see you next time. Oh, and if you've been wondering where I've been making a podcast with my best friend Joe called Pop the Culture Podcast, where we analyze all different various forms of media, TV, video games, film, all the sorts. So if that's what you're into, feel free to check it out and put a link in the description below. Thanks, bye!